Good morning, everybody. November 1st. Sorry, we're just getting started here. And let's just keep going from there. Hold on one second. Give me 1 second. So let's just take a look at what's going on out there right now. There's a lot. I mean, there's just a ton to go over. Let me just go through it this way, drop this down, and let's just start. So to me, small caps make the most sense out of anything out there. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just if you go back and you look at history and you take a look at what names continue to move first when you come out of something like this, it is always the small cap names. So I would tell you that that's definitely going to be where my focus is. I'm not so sure, to be honest, I'm not so sure that all this continues, that we just continue to see these rallies. I'm not so sure that that's what we see here. So, take this with a grain of salt and then kind of go from there. I just don't know where we're going to, what we're going to see right now. So I'm not a big believer in just all of a sudden we're going to miraculously roll back up here. Now, are we seeing signs of that? Yeah, we are. Like this morning, I mean, if you're going to flip this doji, which it looks like you're going to off the open, and this is the game we're going to start doing where they're just going to start gapping us up, right? Then we're going to have to pay attention to that game. And we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to do this. But my thought with it is, how can I say this? My thought is I just don't, I hate to say it like this. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that we're all of a sudden miraculously just going to go back up after yesterday's action. So I'm very apprehensive to add here on anything. I'd like to see how we're going to act and then kind of go from there before, we get all giddy and we get all convinced that we're just going to rally. Right. So keep that in mind. It's definitely not something that I'm overly positive about. I would rather have gapped down and then rallied. But when you're gapping up like this, I mean, you're down 1% yesterday, you're up 1% today. You start to see this. I actually have a small short position on in SQQ. I'll just tell you that right now. One of the demarcation lines I've been using, and it's worked extremely well for me in this market, is just the 5-day moving average. This is what I dealt with all day. It's very hard for me to get excited because I'm bidding up because of something that, obviously we're dealing with something that happened in quote China. That could change in a day if they want to lock everything down again, if they want to change their policy. It's just not sustainable, right? So now what's going on in Japan, that's sustainable because that can cause a currency war. And if we see that, meaning that they would just start dumping dollars. If they start dumping dollars, the dollar is going to drop, the markets will rally. That's real. That's something worth watching. But to me, looking at some of these names like Baba and all this kind of stuff, I mean, I'm just chomping at the bit to short them again. I hope they run them. So, because it just means more money to make on the short side. I mean, these names all of a sudden, they're just, up 15%, 12%. They are just gimmies as far as a short. I hate to be that blunt about it, but if you're looking to short something, you should be looking at shorting all these names again. Okay. We all know from past videos who sells at a 45-degree angle. It is institutions. Okay. They are just dumping everything onto the US stock market, period. It's very obvious what's going on here if you understand how to read a chart. So to go out there and say that, oh, this time it's going to be different. Was it different this time? Was it different this time? Or was this time different, right? Was this time different or this time? How about this time, right? I mean, I hate to be this facetious with it, but how many times do you have to, fall for the banana in the tailpipe or get hit in the back of the head with a frying pan to know what's going on? So I'd be really apprehensive here. I'd be really apprehensive with those names. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't trade up a little bit today. Sure, they can. It doesn't mean the market can't rally. Of course it can. Like the driving force of the market, has been, let's get rid of all this and start over, has been the dollar. And if the dollar drops, right, if the dollar drops, which it is dropping, you're going to see the market go up. So I'm going to take a moment and flip charts so that everybody can see this, because this is really important. And then I'm going to put this out there, but I want people to see this. So what's up, Travis? So here you are, okay, on your dollar. And this is your drop on the dollar, right? Now let's just add in, make sure I've got this on the right charting system. I do, great. Then let's just add in the SPY so you can see what I'm getting at, okay? So here's the SPY, right? So the low is marked by the high of the dollar, right? Like that's not a coincidence, right? Okay. So now you just go out there and go, well, where are we with USD, JPY? All right, let's go take a look at that and see what's going on. So if we put the dollar out there as well, right? And we put the Japanese, right? Now you have the SPY down here and you have the US dollar versus Japan. You start seeing that come in the same exact way, right? What's that doing? It's telegraphing your move. So I would strongly recommend that you watch the dollar here. I can't be more specific as far as what's driving the market. I mean, that's your trade. So if that continues today, overall, maybe we do trade up. But I would have, I have one foot out the door after yesterday. I'll just be blunt about it, and we'll go from there. But I really think that that's something that you need to take into account. We haven't even talked about the Fed meeting and what's going on there. And that's obviously something that's really important. We should talk about AMD, LSCC, but let me just throw that out there. Put that on the Twitterverse, get that going. So let's get to these questions and let's start getting through some names. I just think it's really important for people to understand what exactly is going on out there. I think that there's a lot of moving parts people just aren't aware of. Win, McDonald's. Yeah, let's start here with Win. So you're seeing a lot of people start taking stakes, right, in these kinds of companies. I think we saw yesterday, I forget who it was. I forget which one he took a stake in. One of the Frittatas took a stake in one of these companies. I don't know if it was, I think it was actually Win that he did it in, which kind of makes sense. I mean, they're the brand name. I don't know. I mean, I would be very apprehensive about buying anything that's bidding up. And I certainly would be apprehensive about buying anything. I'm not telling you not to look at it, but I'd be really apprehensive buying anything that's in a downtrend like that, that's in that kind of downtrend, right? And the reason I say that is I have no idea what they're going to do in Macau. I don't know if he's going to shut things down again. So it's really hard for me to tell you, oh, go out there and buy that. And then you come in and then they found out someone has a cold and that's the end of it, right? Or he wants to shut down for some other reason or whatever the heck it is. When you start dealing with that, like it's just that level of uncertainty. Institutions do not want to play around with this. Now, maybe for somebody that is like a LBO kind of guy, like Frittata is, this makes perfect sense because he's got an edge and he's willing to wait 3 to 5 years, right? He's willing to wait 5 years for, Z to be out of power. I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know if they're thinking about spinning assets off. I have no idea, but I'm very apprehensive about those names. Now, as far as DraftKings, this is pretty obvious what's going on here. And, I know we have earnings and everyone's all giddy and we're going into football season. I sound so like skeptical today. I can already hear it in my voice, which is rare for me, but I'm just not buying this. I mean, this is, maybe it breaks, maybe it finally goes. You're coming up on it, right? On the 4th. So maybe it breaks. I don't know. How's it doing every time it gets to the 200, right? What happens at the 200 day? Every day just sold, sell, 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 sell. I don't know that I'd be rushing in there to buy that right now and go from there. I don't know. I don't know that I'd be rushing into that right now. So definitely something to think about, and we'll go from there. just keep on going here. I think that you're going to see a lot of people very quiet today because of the Fed. Monster flat, breaking base, JP Morgan downgrade, next level, 99, 100. Yeah, I mean, Monster maybe. I like JP Morgan as a name. I know you're probably talking about Monster, but I really like JP Morgan and what's going on here. We just have to watch how you're acting now that you're near this 200-day. This is where you rejected long-term, right? If you can start closing above this, you're going to get interest. You're going to get more people stepping up because there are long-term investors that do not buy names that are under the 200-day moving average. They won't bother. But the moment it flips, they'll buy it. They'll just print it and they'll just stay with it. So, there is something to that. Yeah, there's definitely something to that. I would watch this very closely and see if you get a close like that over that. As far as Monster, maybe these names, we've seen a lot of buying in these names recently, right? And maybe that's going to continue. Every week I see someone putting a new chart out there about Celsius and whether it's going to go up or down. I know that people watch that one a lot. It's huge growth. Monster, they've got some deep pockets. They've got some real backing there. Pepsi to me was one I had in the top 10. Let's remove this triangle or rectangle, but I'm not so sure what happens here. So you're going to have to watch this pretty closely and see how that plays itself out. And so we'll see how that goes. What's going on, Fatty? I think that you're lagging behind because people are worried about the dividend and the structure and these windfall taxes. I think that's what you're saying. I'd be careful of anything with a death cross, right? Because there's something out there that I just don't understand. And when I don't understand something, like, for example, with Win, I just avoid it. Like I've been doing this so long that if I get burnt by something, I don't go near it. And sometimes that means I miss trades, right? Like First Soul yesterday, we had a bunch of people in the community that actually did the trade. When you flipped over the top of this wick, it got about $2 too high for me. So I avoided that. And that cost me probably $4 on a trade yesterday, but I just stay out of the way. It's just life experience. Or my life experience, I should say. But so take something like this, right? I have no idea why it's acting so poorly. I just know that it is. Now, maybe BP has problems that we're not aware of, right? Now, BP is not really breaking out like the others. Maybe they had more exposure. Maybe those dollars that are supposed to go out in the dividend, right? Because they can manipulate that however they want. Okay. People say they can't, they can. And maybe they need that capital. And maybe that's what they're doing with it. Thank God for the mini fridge. Oof. Okay. So I think that I don't know why it's doing that, right? I'm sure there's a reason for it. I don't know if they're talking about the tax structure or they're talking about taxation. I don't know. This one's holding up a lot better, right? There are other ones that are holding up much better. Like look at this Permabase and Royalty Trust. So let's clean this all off. So what are we missing, right? Why are we missing this, right? Like that's where my head goes, Fatty. Like we're missing something. And I don't know what it is. I've got volume dropping off. So I just avoid it. I would just avoid it. I think playing energy is really simple right now, quite frankly. If you look at these names, I mean, all-time high, this is opening at 235. It looks like this morning. This was one that was just in the newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, I strongly recommend that you get it. I put a lot of information in it, a lot of information for free. So I would definitely get the newsletter. So, and that's really, if you ever want to join the trading community, it's going to get to the point where that's going to be the only way in is if you're a member of that newsletter, because it's getting a little, I want to keep that community at a certain level so that I can interact with everybody. So anyway, let's just keep on rocking and rolling here. So that's where my head is. So I don't know that I'd play with that. I think I'd be looking at other names, right? I mean, we're in a ton of these names. Look at ERX, right? I mean, we're up 6 points now in this thing. And I just think we're getting started. So I would be leaning towards, I mean, I can just keep running through them. Like I literally had to stop putting these names in the newsletter because there's so many and they look so good, right? I mean, I hate to be that blatant about it. So energy, energy, energy. I can't say it enough. I think I have 13 names. I closed 2 positions out yesterday in the newsletter. I think there's 4 or 5 of those names, 50% are energy driven. So why would I even pay attention to something that is rolling and pointing down? You know what I mean, Fatty? I'd be better off just looking at something else. Go from there. So I hope that helps. Good morning, Timo. What's up? There he is. What's going, bud? Let's make some money all day, every day. Can't stop, won't stop, don't know how. I feel like high yield bonds need to go up today. I think there's something out there that we're missing, right? I think I'm missing something. That's how I feel. So you watched this yesterday, right? So here, let's clean this all off. So you watched this yesterday, and I think you're right. I think you have a valid point. I reject there. Well, why am I selling high yield bonds going into the Fed? I thought we knew what we were going to see, right? It's so funny. I heard someone the other day say, don't chart don't chart bond yields. Okay. If you don't chart bond yields, it's only called the single greatest moves, right? It's only called the single greatest moves out there in the index. So I'll just leave it at this. You can chart everything. Everything can be charted if it's done properly and used in the right context. So I chart everything. People are like, oh, you can't chart the VIX. I've been doing it all year. I've been doing quite well knowing where people's positions are by charting the VIX and watching certain levels. So you can chart anything. Now, if you see this level and you see how this is breaking down, we closed above it. Now we're going to, all of a sudden, we're going to miraculously rally down and we're going to take out these lows. This is not normal behavior for the 10-year treasury. Okay. We don't all of a sudden miraculously drop, right, that level. So you're telling me Fed leaks yesterday, right? And I think it's pretty clear. There's a New York Times article yesterday. So I think he's going to have some, I'm just speculating, but I think there's going to be some language in there tomorrow. But so we sell off yesterday. The news it's a Times article last night. Now we come in today and the bond market is down, right? And look at the gap. When was the last time you had a gap like this? Okay. When was the last time you had a gap like that? And that's what we're walking into this morning, right before the Fed meeting. Okay. And junk is kind of bidding up, but not really. You see what I'm getting at? Like something doesn't fit. So I'd be really careful here. That's where my head is. I'd be real careful here. I did close some winners yesterday, specifically on this, but I agree with you, Shane. There's something out there. What's going on, Josh? TDW. So, bum, 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 bum. Yeah, there you go. Boom. You're kind of extended, aren't you? I mean, I can't buy that, right? I mean, I have to at least get over that wick. And now then my stop is like here, and then it moves to here. I'm not sure I want to risk something like that on something that's so far off its main base. It's pretty high off its base for me anyway, right? So this is why, people always say, don't buy the breakouts because the failure rate's so great. The failure rate's great, but so is the return. So, I mean, that's where you buy it here, not here, right? And then that's your stop. Then you're in for $1 versus buying it up here. Now your stop's $2-3. Very different trade. I mean, it looks awesome. If you're in it, congratulations. I mean, seriously, if you're in that, congratulations. That looks like it's going to be a monster. For me, you're just out of position. I'm out of position, I should say. Like I can't add to that here. And I like the volume. The volume's picking up again, but it's not something that I could jump into. And you have earnings coming out as well. But if you are in that, congratulations, Josh. Tesla. Yeah, let's get into some of these. So Tesla. So this is our trade. I'm just going to tell you this right now. We closed this whole thing yesterday, so I have to reword all this. But we've been scaling out as it's trading up. Let me just go through this. But I did close the entire thing yesterday on like when it rallied back up. Obviously, if I knew that China was going to have good news or Japan was going to have good news, I wouldn't have done that. But there was nothing redeeming about that chart yesterday. So that's your level, right? That's what you need to see. If you flip this, could you push? Absolutely. If you flip that level, 233.81, you could absolutely push. Okay. But you could also do the same exact thing you did last time, right? And roll right back to that 229. So every time we're above that 229.88, we can't close above it. Okay. So you have two levels here that I think are of significance, and I'll just point them out. All right. You're unable to close above 229.88. You're unable to get over 235.81. Both of those could happen today. You could get over that and you could stay over it. And then you just kind of have to move the trade up over and over again and watch these levels. And you need to watch those levels really carefully. You're going to have a lot of volume off the open, and then you're going to have no volume, right? I mean, that's what we're going to see. That's what's going to happen. So keep that in mind. Price wave up, property entry. Yeah. Friday action looks really good. Low volume, red day, scaring people now. I'm afraid of what happened with the market. I'm more afraid of what I saw, Cam, like the action I saw in the market, the lack of follow through after Friday. We should have had follow through. And people are saying, oh, it's a light day, so it doesn't count. That's good. It counts. If I lose money, it counts. I don't care if it's on light volume or heavy volume, right? So I get small biotech. I mean, I do get that. It makes sense to me. Look, I keep posting this over and over again, okay? And people need to get this. In 2000, when you're back here, it took 3 years, right, for IWM to hit a new high, okay? It took 16 for the NASDAQ. All right. So you could, when people are saying it could take a decade to get back here, yeah, it could take a decade to get back here. Yeah, it could. Right? And that doesn't mean anything because you ground when you were grinding from like 02 all the way to 08, 07, we made a fortune. Right? So who cares? ABMD. Let's take a look at that. Let me just see this. With BPT, here's what I would do. Here, let's go through this. It's a really good question. Well, would you just get out? Yeah, I mean, I think the question is, what's your cost and what are you trying to do? For me, looking at this, I don't know why we're going down, right? But what I would start doing is setting levels to it. So in other words, like, do I need to sell now? Probably not. But if I start cracking, that's drawn very poorly. But if I start cracking things like this and start taking out these lows, $12, $11, right? I mean, you at some point you have to start going and just do the count, right, Voss? So like if you just do the count and you realize that this is your wedge line, right? And this is the top of when that wedge breaks, and that's a 3.64 move or 24%. And you realize that if you break that line, the rule of thumb is that you go to that 24% line, right? That's the rule. That would be the inverse move, right? It's like looking in a mirror, like an enantiomer for those that are into OChem. So there you go, right? 847. Okay. So you want to go through that because that's what it's telling you if it breaks, right? So you measure the move and then it gives you an idea of where you could get to. I don't want to go through that, right? So I need a stop, right? I need to stop somewhere. Whether I want to have a stop or I don't want to have a stop, it doesn't matter, right? You need to have a stop. Use stops or stop trading. One or two will happen. So, you're wedged in here, man. and you're below the 50 and you're below the 200 Voss. So you got to be really careful there. Yep. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. 12. Perfect. So, trading community. Oh, thanks, Tug. Appreciate it. Sophie. Yep. So they actually had decent numbers, right? Let's go through them real quick and just pull that up. I was looking at that this morning. So they beat and revenues were up and they guided higher and the stock's responding favorably to it. Yeah, I mean, you have a good CEO there, actually. I mean, Noto's actually a pretty good CEO. I don't know what their plan is. My thought would be the plan is that at some point they're going to try to sell the company. SoftBank just keeps dumping stock, right? So that's not good. And it's weighing on the stock. Would I buy this up 20%? No, I'd be on the other side of it. I mean, every great rally that this has resulted in just dumping. So I don't know if it'd be today, but I'll be on the short side of that, even with good news. Like you'll go flat again because SoftBank will use that bump probably to unleash more stock, or some of the VC firms that he got into this will use it to sell more stock. Eventually they'll be cleaned out. It's just going to take a long, long time, right? And then somebody will merge with them. If I was in this, I'd be locking in my profits. And congratulations if you hit that. It's a great trade. But I wouldn't be staying with it, Maria. I certainly wouldn't be chasing it. Lamb and what's going on, Travis? So and Lamb Research, Uber, and Eat. What's up, dude? So let's do this. Eat. Yeah. These kinds of names are really interesting to me because food prices are dropping. Right. And as food prices are dropping, they're not lowering the prices on the menu yet. And the reason that they're not doing that is not because they're greedy capitalists. The reason they're not doing it is because they're not sure that they're actually going to stay down. Believe me, these companies will all want to cut their costs. Right. See that W? So they all want to cut their costs. Right. Why? Because they want more people to come in and buy. So you're riding the 5, you're above the 200. You have not been above the 200 in how long? See, these are the kinds of names you really have to start paying attention to because that's a change in trend. So let me get rid of all my annotations here for a moment. Let's talk about this one for a second, right? So now you flip that level, right? If you can flip here and push, yeah, this might be something. You got to play. You're playing it in the earnings, so you got to be careful. Uber has some real problems, and okay, so you're trading up. I see issues. I see nothing but issues with Uber. So I wouldn't be a buyer of it just because of all their issues. I mean, people are not going to spend $60 to have a cheeseburger delivered to their house. They're just not going to do it. So, I went through this the other day where I was trying to explain this where it is big if you can get above the 200 and stay above it. But I don't think you're going to be able to. I really don't. But what I'm getting at is the other day, my son called me and bought some food. It shows up on your credit card. He's in college. And I'm like, what did you buy? And he's like, cheeseburger, French fries, pretzel. The bill was like $67. It was crazy. So, and it's not, and that's from somebody like, I don't care about it. But to me, it was just so out of whack that it made me stop and look like, so I can't be the only person. I don't know how a family of 4 is supposed to order from Uber Eats. Like it's crazy. You're going to spend a couple $100 on a meal, right? So you're going to go to a restaurant. I think they have a real problem there, and we'll see how that plays out. I wouldn't chase it, Timo. Lamb. Let's talk about Lamb and let's talk about Lattice, which is interesting. No one's brought up Lattice. So Lamb Research, you're up. Okay, let's just go through this, right? We've been talking about this name and getting up to here since you broke here, and it's just done everything that we thought it was going to do. I did not put a position on because I did not want to have more semi exposure, I should say, but it's done fantastic. There's very little to say here. Watch this 411.59. That's been premium bonk level, right? Bonk, 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 bonk. So you just want to watch that level. I do want to talk about this one. I didn't see anyone mention this one, but this LSCC, they had really good numbers and they raised guidance, and that's really what you want to see. So also these pharma companies all raised guidance. We should probably talk about that. No one's mentioning that. Pfizer raised guidance. That's something that you're kind of looking at and going, wow, like that's pretty interesting, right? It is for me anyway. And then Lilly actually lowered guidance. So keep that in mind. You can see some action there in both those names today. Let me just go to this at the end. No, I don't think that's too low. That's what I would use. Yeah, I think Lilly, please hit the like button. That does help me greatly with the algorithm. So people have said I should probably stream this on different platforms at the same time. It sounds like something maybe I should look into. But yeah, I do. I think something like Lilly down 4%, 5%. Yeah, that's when you buy it. Like if here, let's get rid of this and let's wrap this up from here. But like, let's just go through this. Okay. So this was bad. This was earnings and it never looked back, right? This was earnings and where are you later? Higher. So this was earnings and you sold down. Where are you a month later? So when do you buy this? Not when it's breaking out, when it's breaking down. Right? These are defensive plays. I don't know if Lilly stays down 3%, 4%. I would be leaning towards, yeah, if I wanted to buy something, I would be buying Lilly. Absolutely. Get me down a good 5%. You can actually even use ATR and come up with a number, right? Hold on. I'll show you how to do this really quickly. I think that's ATR. It's kind of blocked. Yep. So there's ATR. So if you use ATR and you go, okay, well, $10. So if I'm down $20, right? So here, right? $10, like that's your standard move, right? $10, right? That's one deviation. So that if you're down here, like let's just say you got the 343, right? Your second standard deviation move, right? The probability of that staying there is less than 5% on a daily move. That's the probability of it staying there, right? So that's a level where you almost have to be, looking at it if you want to do that trade. All right. Hope that helps. What's going on, Jess? Let's see here. Yeah, I would not be going long it. I would actually be shorting it off the open. If I had to bet, my thought is that I'm going to roll and I'm going to come back down. That's my bet on where we're at. But I got to jump. I got to hop in the trading room. As always, trade to win. Please like the video on your way out. Have a great day, everybody.